You're listening to the Dad Whisperer podcast with Dr. Michelle Watson Canfield. Be sure to follow her on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can find out more about Dr. Michelle at drmichellewatson.com. That's drmichellewatson.com. Here now is your host, Dr. Michelle Watson Canfield.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Dad Whisperer podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Watson Canfield. And if you're joining us today for the first time, I welcome you. If you're a repeat guest, I'm glad you're back. And you all know the grid I use every week, which is simply on your mark, get set, go. So Dad, picture yourself standing with other dads getting ready to run your fathering race this week. And I'm on the sidelines cheering you on, here with my guest coach today, my husband. And we are both cheering you on, saying on your mark,
get set,
go.
You got it.
On your mark, topic or the theme, get set. We're going to fill that in with stories, sometimes with stats. And I'm here with a statistician, a social researcher. He loves those numbers. And then go is always your practical action steps. So you can put your love for your daughters and even your sons into action this week. Well, today for On Your Mark, the topic is how a powerful fathering vision leads to positive action. Now, I told you I've got a guest coach today joining me. It's my husband. Yes, I give him big bucks to join me here. Yeah, there you go. And let me just tell you a little bit about him, even though you probably already know about him more than you probably even do me. But Dr. Ken Canfield is someone that's been a pioneer in the fathering space, founded the National Center for Fathering in 1990. Fathers.com is actually the rebrand of the National Center for Fathering. So you can look that up, fathers.com. It's got a revamped website in the past year. How many articles are on there, babe?
Over 700 pages.
700 pages of research.
Yes.
And Ken has been at the forefront of a lot of national, even international research. He's been written up in so many journals, had an influence in the White House back under the Clinton administration. He's also founded the National Association for Grandparenting at grandkidsmatter.org. So if you want to know more about Ken's books, probably the most famous one is The 7 Secrets of Effective Fathering, or Fathers.
Fathers.
7 Secrets of Effective Fathers, been translated into many different languages. And also I love The Heart of a Father. And that was one of my favorites. So anyway, they call me Dad. On and on it goes. 13 books Ken has written. So today I wanted us to join together this week, our 250th birthday as a nation.
Yes.
Woohoo! This is a week of celebration.
It is.
And looking at our forefathers, looking at their courage, their bravery that has set the foundation for all of us now. So it seemed like this was going to be a poignant conversation about linking our forefathers to current fathers. And this idea of how can you be a courageous dad, especially when it comes to dialing into your daughter's heart, how can you be a courageous, forward-focused dad, just like those men of old? And I really wanted to tie the now and the then together. Anything you want to say about that?
Oh, I think the history of fathering is rich. I think fathers have always, as they moved from an agrarian to an industrial to now a technological stage, that there are new issues. So let's see if we can go through the past and bring it to the present with tips. So get ready.
Here we go. Okay, again, on your mark, how a powerful fathering vision leads to positive action. So what do you think? If you want to be a dad that focuses on that, then you've come to the right place today. Okay, so here we go. Let's break it down. Let's start by defining terms. So I think sometimes we know that in Scripture, we read the verse that says, Proverbs 29:18, without vision, the people perish. And so we kind of throw that word around, but let's break it down and define it. How would you, Ken, define the word vision?
Well, it's your motivations, your heart. Another translation of that same proverb is they cast off restraint. We're living in a day with multitude of distractions, good things, not great things. Great things are that few moments you have in time with your child, with your daughter. are you optimizing your schedule around her? And so getting a vision that incorporates them, because they are going to be going to a world you and I will never go to. So vision is key, because that gives us something to benchmark and look back and see how we're doing.
Okay, so I love going to Webster, to the encyclopedia, getting definitions that are kind of layman's terms. And here's what I looked up for the definition of vision: is the act or power of seeing. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about, getting our eyes checked, we get a vision check. So vision has to even do, springboarding on what Ken just said, on being able to see, to look down the road, to cast forward something you see beyond the here and the now. Mm. So especially if you're in a tough place with your daughter, I would encourage you as the adult, as a father, to think beyond the here and the now. Where do you want at the end of your life to be? And how can you look backwards from that point to now to say, what's the bigger picture that you want to keep in view? Here's another definition: the ability to think about or plan the future with imagination or wisdom. Mm-hmm. Let me say that again. The ability to think. So it's not just about what you see, but it's the ability to think about or plan the future with imagination or wisdom. So that's the what. What is vision? You've heard from both of us. Now, Ken, I want to ask you, why does vision matter when it comes to fathering, or does it?
Absolutely. It gives you a benchmark, a place to start. Now, we talked about our history. Prior to America becoming a nation, it was required of heads of households, specifically fathers, to teach their children how to read. Now, this was in the colony of Massachusetts before we were a nation. So the vision there, Michelle, was fathers were involved in the education of their child. And what came out of that? Look at all the East Coast universities that have departed from some of the home style spiritual engagement of fathers to, you just trust the teachers and move on. And then you move through our history, and you can see in an agrarian society, fathers taught their both sons and daughters what it meant, not just to work hard, but demonstrating that in a plan together. So again, why do we have a vision? Because without that, we are going to get, 2 or 10 degrees off the long-term vision. And this is the key. You've been endowed with a title, and it's dad. And that title has depth and meaning, particularly in the spiritual world, because the creator of the universe has also disclosed himself in fatherly ways. No, he's genderless. There's no doubt about that. But he expressed himself. So, Dad, he's vested in you. If that's the case, ask him, what vision do you have for me to put into place with my daughter this fall, this next year?
Yeah, exactly. And what we're going to be really encouraging you as a dad to do by the end of this conversation with us is that you've written something down.
Good.
That it's not just imagination or wisdom or a thought, but it's going to have action. Because again, without vision, the people perish. It's implied that this is something that's happening in real time with action. So let me also now give you a biblical meaning of vision. Look this one up too. In the Bible, the word vision is a term typically used to describe an encounter with God where someone from God had imparted information, directives, insights, right? It was a lot of times the prophets that got a vision of something that hadn't yet happened. Sometimes it wasn't good, what God was going to do to Israel for their choices, like here's the consequence. But it was also something that wasn't always clear in the moment, but it was casting forth a picture and an image in the prophet's mind for what was coming. And I think where I see that, Ken, relating to fathers, is that sometimes you as a dad need to hold a vision for your daughter that maybe you had before she was born or as an infant, or you saw something in her character, in her personality that maybe got lost as you look back on her life in adolescence. Maybe in middle school, you're like, what happened to my daughter? Like I think of a client that I've worked with this last year where COVID really did a number on her. And cutting was happening and really getting, I would say, lost in her gifts, forgot who she was because of lack of being able to access, time with friends or some of the things she had done before. And through tears, mom and dad were saying, we lost her. And my encouragement to parents, especially to you as dads, is that vision of what you saw when your daughter was young, even if it's lost somewhere along the way, don't lose sight of that. Even if it's sight with your inside heart eyes, not your physical eyes. And maybe that's sometime, a practical action step is run off a picture of what your daughter looked like at that young age and write on that photo your prayer requests for her. Like I remember how outgoing she was. And, I think of Olivia, one of the gals that I've mentored since she was really probably 7 or 8. She's now married, but where I remember that she had a real heart for special needs, those with disabilities. She'd be the one in 2nd grade that would go up to those kids in Sunday school and help them along, or in school. And mom and dad, especially her dad, would say, I can't believe the way she sees those kids. No one's asking her to go help them, but that's something God has endowed her with, right? Did you ever have that with your daughters where you saw their gifting as little bumpkins?
Absolutely.
3 daughters, right?
Okay. I use everything from vocational tests, personality tests, preference tests. And I can tell you this, after giving tests, even to my children and to others, I would always invest the tests that you could take on your daughter. Do you know her well enough? Have you asked for that specific vision? How to optimize this gift that God has given you? Her personality, her unique spiritual awareness, the vocational aptitude she has. And once you do that, affirmation and encouragement, when you see those things, check it off. You've done something. Have you noticed that? I love the simple things that we pick up. And oftentimes, those details are what is caught. We think back and think we did all these things. We did Disneyland, we did this and that, and did all the dad things and tried to do our best, chaperone at events and so forth. And you know what they remember many times? Because I've just recently talked to my children as they're adults and that they've given us grandchildren. They remember things that I've forgotten or I thought was insignificant.
Right.
So in this vision thing, it's dynamic. And the application of that is exactly as Michelle said, somewhat prophetic in the prophets of the Old Testament. Now, here's the challenge. What if you have a vision and it's not being fulfilled? Or what if you have a plan and your daughter is struggling right now? Dad, it's called the Adjustment Bureau. You have to adjust with the vision because this is it. You're just a steward of this daughter. This other father that created the universe and gives opportunities that are beyond our understanding is using you and giving you insight, but you're just stewarding that. So we have to be flexible and roll with the punches. And I do see some of that as the challenge. So in this vision, have you recalibrated that? And then looked, as Michelle said, to the long term, because sometimes you have short-term failures that you just have to zip it and don't, go off and then recognize, hey, I noticed something. You're back on track or, something like that.
Springboarding on that, Ken, is just this week. I had a dad reach out to me about his 19-year-old daughter and said, I really think she needs to go on this family vacation. And I said, nope. She's a full-fledged adult, 19. She has choice and voice now.
That's right.
You can ask her, do you want to hear my opinion? If she says no, you have to honor that, right? So sometimes, like you said, you got to hold back on the vision and turn it into a prayer. That's what I encourage this dad is you get to speak, vertically, not horizontally. As your daughter is figuring things out for herself, even though you want to keep parenting and steering and maybe casting that vision for her.
Yes.
But you want your daughter to be able to see that from God on her own, which
Yes.
leads actually to part 2 of this. You want to go first?
I would
Okay.
just say this. That's not bad. Your vision is good. Hold on to that vision. But as Michelle said, don't just say it, pray it.
Oh, come
And
on.
recognize that there is another side and another
Yeah.
father on your side that is going to open up opportunities that we can't, in our earthly way, open up.
And before we go to the break, I want to give one more definition that I looked up in the Hebrew about the word vision that we've sort of touched on, but I want to make sure it's really clear as you're beginning, especially on this week that we're celebrating our country's 250th birthday,
Yay.
where a lot of people, a lot of men cast a vision that they never lived to see played out. So that when you think about the Hebrew understanding of vision, it was for decades, generations after them. It was about legacy. Here's the definition I looked up. A supernatural revelation from God. This is what a vision is in the Hebrew. That can be intuitive or imparted in dreams or direct communication to the actual one who saw the vision. So this idea of thinking beyond the now, I've talked about going to the end of your life, thinking, what do you want your daughter to say that you meant to her or that she meant to you? And you get to then come back to the now, but it's about really kind of a fluid idea, I guess I would say, of time, because that's how it was in the Old Testament. They didn't know when Messiah would be born. They didn't know a lot of times when they would get out of Egypt. They didn't know that God's promises weren't going to be fulfilled in their lifetime. But it was all about how do you not give up hope, even when you can't see yet the answers to the things that God has laid on your heart.
Absolutely. You know, it makes me think too of crises, because most fathers kind of wake up. Oh, there's a crisis. I got to do something.
Yeah.
You know, everything's good when everybody's checking off the boxes, falling in line, but a crisis comes. It could be a relationship. It could be a behavior. It could be a physical thing. And that's when we really need to say and to see this. You know, the Chinese character for crisis is dangerous opportunity. Okay, this is where I want you to get flexible. Often those dangerous things are opportunities for change and transformation. You don't see it coming. And it's like so many of the things that the way God works, he doesn't always work just straight on. Sometimes I see him coming on the side streets and I think, what? How did I miss that? As a father who is manning the ship, giving leadership on his knees, praying, blessing, doing all the things, remember, those opportunities may be the things that test and help us to grow in faith like we wouldn't in any other way.
Okay, so before we take a break, I just want to highlight that this first part of our conversation is helping you as a dad understand what it means to have a vision, to lean into a vision for your daughter. And really, at the end of the day, we're saying this is your fathering vision. So it can apply to all of your children in different ways. But we want you, like I said earlier, by the end of this conversation, to be able to write down at least one way that you want to cast your own vision as a father in a new way for the second half of this year. So we'll be right back, and I'll continue with my guest today, Dr. Ken Canfield. We'll be right back.
Are you a dad who has ever desired a deeper connection with your daughter, but haven't known how to go about it? Let's Talk Conversation Starters for Dads and Daughters is the very resource you need. Dr. Michelle wrote it with you dads in mind. This book will support you with scripted questions, equip you to decode your daughter, and inspire you with stories of other dads and daughters. Don't wait any longer to be the hero you want to be and that your daughter needs you to be. So, to let the talking begin, head on over to drmichellewatson.com/books and order your copy today. This book will become a favorite in your fathering toolbox and will give you the answers you've been looking for. That's drmichellewatson.com/books. Now, back to the Dad Whisperer podcast.
Welcome back. I'm Dr. Michelle Watson Canfield, the Dad Whisperer. Today, I have my husband, Dr. Ken Canfield, joining me. And the title on your mark today is How a Powerful Fathering Vision Leads to Positive Action. Because if you don't have a vision, you're going to be just wandering out in the desert and not really knowing where you're headed. And that's why before the break, we're really defining what a vision means and why it's important. So Ken, I want to read something next that you actually said. I wrote this down during the pandemic.
Okay.
And it was so powerful that I saved it. And you will probably remember saying this. And here's what you said. And it's so profound, I want dads to hear it. You said, awakening the hearts of fathers and connecting them in healthy relationships with their daughters is the catalyst for a renewal that is long overdue in America.
Absolutely.
So this idea of our nation's birthday, we're renewed perhaps in our patriotic spirit. Again, a vision that was cast by our forefathers hundreds of years before now, right? 250 years before now, probably even before that, when it became formalized. So what would you say now, these many years later? Because Ken, you said this back in 2020 about fathers connecting with the hearts of their daughters. You believed then, here we are 6 years later, was part of what would really cast a vision, be a catalyst for renewal in America spiritually. What would you say to that now?
For two things. I think as you spoke before the break about this generational vision, I'm reminded that we serve, and it's unique in our faith, let's say, history, a generational God. He sees eons down the road. And here we are, an important blip in the screen. And when you think about that catalyst for revival and renewal in familial terms, I'm talking about the family, I see nothing richer or with more promise than daughters. I'll tell you why. I wouldn't be a father if I wasn't married to somebody's daughter. Now you may say, oh, well, you're talking about marriage. No, I am talking about this role that God has placed women in, and with the ability to carry and bear children and help them start in what I'd say those early years. Not that you're not involved. I'm vitally involved.
Ken, now I want to continue what I started earlier that you had said about your role as a dad and what you believe God is doing in our country. You said, I realize this thread, this one about the father-daughter relationship, is one thread of a larger tapestry that God is weaving. But within this thread is catalytic power to connect hearts and unite generations.
Absolutely.
So you've talked about God being a generational God.
Yeah.
So part of this idea of having a vision that leads to positive action is knowing that the generations beyond now, right, are going to point back to the way that you led, the way that you loved, the way that you sacrificed for your children. Let me go on to some more things you said, Ken, that's really profound, and then I'd love to hear your comments. You said, because every woman is a daughter, this truth hits home for us all, whether or not you're raising a daughter. You said, I believe that awakening the hearts of fathers and connecting them in a healthy relationship with their daughters is the catalyst for the awakening that is long overdue in America. This renewal is where both dads and daughters thrive. What would you say about that?
It's very clear. If you nurture your daughter and also provide the best of opportunities for her and just being with her, being involved in her world, her relationships, not overbearing or intruding. I'm not saying that, but really checking in. What you're going to do is help raise a warrior in the true sense. Now, that doesn't mean she's going to go out and do something that's dangerous. It means she has a vision like the vision that you've expressed in your relationship with her.
So one of the ways that I love to encourage dads to raise a warrior,
right?
A female warrior,
right,
is a empowered woman who knows who she is and whose she is, right, as a daughter of God, but is to ask your daughter to make a list of 10 outrageous things she wishes she had the nerve to do. I did this probably 20 years ago, Ken, And one of the things that I wrote down there was write a book. I thought that was a crazy, outrageous thing that I would never do. Here I've now written 2 and I have more in me. But Dad, you can use that list of outrageous things as your prayer list for her because she's saying, this might just be in seed form. I don't feel like I'm a warrior yet, but I'm thinking about it, which takes me back to Judges 6, the story of Gideon, where he's hiding out on the threshing floor from the Midianites. And right, the angel of the Lord comes in and says, the Lord's with you, mighty warrior. And basically, this is my rendition of the Hebrew. He's going, you talking to me? Like, you have the wrong person. I'm not there yet. But I think part of casting a vision for your daughter is that you can ask her along her journey. She could be 5 and you could ask her, what outrageous things do you want to do? Ask her at 10, at 15, at 20, and you get to hold that idea, that vision for her, even like we've said many times today already, if it gets lost along the way.
You know, and you said this will also add an incorporated piece to your vision as a father to your daughter. You have a vision, absolutely. But when you incorporate these things that Michelle said, it's a side by side. It's a team. And a daughter who has a team member that's her father, she's not afraid of anything. She's ready to roll and ready to go. And I really believe that endowment is so critical all during her life. It doesn't stop. This daughter someday is going to be caring for you as you age and mature. And hopefully, you know, she too will have the beautiful privilege of having children or rearing children in some other capacity. And so she's going to bring you in and remember those things that you did and shared with her in this journey.
And I love that you even just said, or rearing children, because I haven't had biological children, but my dad got to champion the way that I loved on other people's kids.
He did.
Or my mothering heart, like, was expressed in ways that I cared for people and hosted people. And so, yeah, the feminine heart is something that you as a dad, when Ken used that word endowment, like, you are endowing your daughter with an ability to embrace her femininity, her beauty as a woman in expressing her gifts to the world.
And her potential. We have yet to see how this can play out, but we do know the benefit is this: generations are secure. When fathers have nurtured daughters, it brings a sense of continuity and solidarity, the whole family system, because as families get bigger or they move, it's many times daughters that lace together the relational and the emotional side of what's going on in the bigger family system. So a listening ear is also something practically as you think about this vision and recalibrating it.
So one of the things I want to kind of pivot and talk about now is what happens, and this is for you as a dad, what happens in a dad's heart, Ken, when maybe his dad didn't believe in his vision. So maybe you're a dad that says, I don't know how to do this with my daughter because I didn't experience that with my dad. In fact, I had some dreams or goals, but I had to give them up to care for my parents, or I had to give them up for this reason, or there was trauma in our family, or financial crisis. So I had to give up my vision, and I didn't get to really live it out and walk it out. How does a dad give to his daughter, or even give a vision now to himself when he never experienced that as a son?
Well, you have to look back and process what you did receive and what you wished you would have received. Now, what you want to do is focus on what you wished you would have received and make sure that's top of line for your relationship with your daughter. It's like moving the fathering scale. Let's say some of us started at a -5. That's right, below 0, where there are addictive patterns, behaviors, and so forth. And we didn't get from our dad what was normal and expected, but we've moved it to a 3 or a 4. That's huge. This is the danger. You may have had a heritage that was full of opportunity, but if you don't operationalize it with a plan and a vision, You may have got a 5. You may just keep it at a 5. And what we need to do as fathers is use this testosterone and vision that God has equipped us with to cast vision and support for our daughters as they mature through the life cycle.
Okay, I love that. I want to read another thing about dads and healing, because I understand and I validate that you may be a dad saying, okay, I hear you, Ken, I hear you, Michelle, that I want to be able to do it different in my generation. I want to cast a vision for my daughter, even if someone didn't do that for me, whether it's your dad or a father figure. And so there's real healing potential when you give something you didn't ever receive. It's like give and it will be given unto you, scripture says, right? That something can heal in your heart as you give something that you never received. Here's something else that both Ken and I believe that we want to say to you fathers about healing. It's clear that most fathers and mothers, of course, have deficits, have wounds, have voids. And so sometimes that tear, if you want to call it that, in our hearts, and especially in those of you as fathers, that it may leave you in a state of feeling insecure, that you can't do this, or that you can't step into hope. And we want to encourage you today to know that Deuteronomy 29:29 says, the Lord our God has secrets known to no one. We are not accountable for them. You're not accountable for what you don't know, the secrets you don't know yet, or the visions you haven't had yet. But we and our children, that verse says, are accountable forever for all that he has revealed to us, so that we may obey all the terms of these instructions. So if you have never had a vision, or God give you a vision, I know Ken has had them before, is that he has seen things in the night. And I love how throughout the Bible, all the way back to Genesis, so often God has spoken to men under trees, out in nature. So it may be something where you begin to say, God, I would love you to start showing me pictures of things in dreams in the night. Give me a picture of my daughter I've never had in my mind's eye. And you get to lean in and say, God, I'm only accountable for the secrets you've revealed. I'm ready for some. I'm ready for some downloads from you that I've never had before. Because I remember my best friend, Connie, her husband, Dave, years ago said that he got pictures in his mind. God would give him these visions. And I remember saying to him, nope, I get words that pop in my head, especially in my 30 years now as a therapist. But never, I said, Dave, I've never had that in a vision. You'll never believe what happened. That conversation opened up some portal and things begin to change inside of me. So even if you're a dad that says, I've never been one of those kind of prophetic in the Bible, see things in my mind's eye kind of guy, it's never too late to ask God for more, to ask him, okay, I'm ready to know, I'm ready to see things with the eyes of my heart, right? I'm ready to open that up. Okay, well, Ken, I know we're kind of getting to the time where we want to kind of put this into action for men so that you guys have your go step here. I want to first tell you about a story of a friend of mine who wrote a letter to all 4 of his kids and said, this letter will never expire. I want you to know that this letter admits that I haven't always gotten it right. I haven't always cast a vision for you. And my own wounds have spilled over on you, whether I wanted them to or not. So this letter is telling you that you can bring it to me at any time and we can have a conversation so that I can make amends. Because sometimes your daughter may not want you to cast a vision for her because her heart's been hurt by you shutting down her dreams or her visions at certain times in her life. And maybe you're at a different point now, but that's just something to keep in mind, that an action step may be that you write a letter and say, this letter gives you permission to come to me at any time and be honest with me about how I shot down your dreams or how my own lack of being able to cast a vision hurt you. What would you say about that, Ken?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, again, dads, you have what I'd say resonance power as you encourage and bless and support these visions that your daughter has, your wife has, you have. And when they don't happen, when you're there to pick up the pieces is going to be important. Now, in the midst of life, you're going to make some mistakes. The mark of a father is not whether he fails. It's what he does after he fails.
Yeah, come on.
And so this gives you opportunity. So this letter writing or a discussion personally, particularly if your family's been through a difficult time. And if you're a father trying to nurture the wounds of a divorce or let's say a split in some way, that takes a lot of self-awareness and transparency for healing to occur. And one thought came to me, Michelle, as fathers were deeply involved in these daughters' lives up until college, there was a study done that these daughters all had their fathers die. They were gone. And they were then asked in the collegiate time, what is it that you miss about your father? And in this study, it noted two things. First of all, and you would expect this, well, I miss that my dad won't be there to walk me down the aisle.
Yep.
But the second is this. Are you ready? I will miss talking to my dad and getting his counsel.
Wow.
Now, that's where it comes around. So if you have the relational compartment and quotient high, they are going to come back in times of stress and difficulty. And there is where you are going to shine because that is going to be a difference maker in their lives. So wait patiently and you don't have to die.
And remember that in adolescence, so we're kind of talking 12 to 18, those are the years where your daughter thinks she knows more than you do.
Yep.
And so it's not unusual for her not to want your input and to buck against that. But like Ken said, just hang in there because later on she's going to say, Dad, what do you remember about me? What are the strengths that you see in me when I'm feeling beat up in the world? And you get to remind her of the vision that you have for her. Okay, I want to end with this idea of what is your go step. So I want you right now, if you can, to get out a pen, get out some paper, or you might actually get out your phone and put this in your notes. But I love the idea, of writing things down. I want you to write a vision statement as a father. I'm going to throw out a couple ideas. Ken will throw out a couple ideas, and you can kind of see what works for you and what lands. One idea is right now to write down the first 3 words that pop into your head when I just say, write a vision statement as a dad to your daughter. Like you may say, okay, hard, challenging. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about what's this process evoking in you. I'm talking about write down 3 words that you do want to be true about you as a dad. So you might say consistent, steady, listener. It could be something like that. Like those are 3 things that I want to be true of me that my daughter would say at the end of my life looking back. It might be loving, spiritually leading, and kind, like going, or not harsh, something like that. Gentle, like going, that is not my nature, but with my daughter, I want God to strengthen that portal in me. So that might be a starting point. Write down 3 words that just immediately come to mind when you think, then you can incorporate it into a sentence. What would you say, Ken, would be a starting point?
2 things. Ask and seek what relational truth do you want to share with your daughter in this upcoming season? A relational truth. Now, that could be you reflecting on your past, your relationship with your father, your relationships, but giving her some sort of experience. It's kind of like a Tuesdays with Dad or Tuesdays with Maury. The second thing is this, write down in the immediate, how are you going to bless your daughter this coming week or month? How are you specifically going to do something that you haven't done before and then just see what happens as a result of doing that and add that to your mission statement?
So some of you heard me talk before about the ABCs of fathering. A is action. You only loved an action figure who took action, right? Superman, Batman, Spider-Man. He had to take action. So this whole idea of if you have a vision, and we want you to have one, even if it's like Ken said, for this week, for the second half of this year, if it's ongoing, that you want to put it in your journal and it's going to be what you're going to carry, till after you die. Because I even know a story of a family where Bob Corser went to be with the Lord on a December 20th one year, just like that heart attack. Wow. And in his Bible later, after he was gone, his kids saw all the dated entries Dad put about their lives, which was everything from said yes to Jesus, got baptized, to learn to ride a bike. I mean, just practical things. So that after you're gone, the things you remember, the things you prayed will live on after you. So again, a practical way, Dad, that you can right now today put into writing, either, like I said, type it into your phone or write it in your journal, write it on a piece of paper, put it in your Bible, put it in your journal, put it up in your closet. But it's here's what I want to just say a little more concisely. Be ready to put your vision into motion, into action. That's that ABC. I guess I should finish that. A is action, B is be the man you want her to marry, and C is consistency. Those are the ABCs of fathering that do play in here. But so be ready today. Put your vision for right now into action and write down 3 ways that you commit to take positive action this week. It may be using the 3 adjectives you just wrote down or descriptors. It may be something you want to do, as Ken just said, this week. Like, I want to be a more proactive listener for 10 minutes before I interrupt. Like, make it really, really practical. Because if it's real vague, you won't be able to measure it. And so if you want to take action, you've got to know that you did the action because it was measurable. And then you can say, number 2, so I want to listen longer. I want to listen for 10 minutes before I interrupt. I'm going to put down the remote and my phone. I will not have anything in my hands, and I'm going to work on eye contact. Like, that's the vision I have, is I want my daughter to know I see her and I hear her. And then it might be a third one, might be your mouth. So you got 3 parts of the body. You're like, I want to work on every day being a dad that gives one positive word of affirmation to my daughter to encourage her for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. I mean, what do you think of that? Is that practical enough? Are we giving dads ideas so that you can put your fathering vision into action? And I'm saying, write me at drmichelle@thedadwhisperer.com. I want to hear what kinds of things you put down. And Ken and I will commit. We promise that, to pray over what you send. Okay?
Sure.
We really do.
Absolutely.
Any last things as we've talked today, again, on your mark, is how a powerful fathering vision leads to positive action. Any last words, Ken, that you would give to dads from your heart as a dad?
Well, 2 things. Crises will come and go. There will be a better day. Never underestimate your influence as a loving, consistent, nurturing voice in your daughter's life. There's no one like you. No one.
Yeah, I love that. You said 2 things. What's the second thing?
The second thing, I don't know. The second thing, ready, set, go.
Okay, you're deferring to me. I'll do the second thing, is that as we celebrate the 250th birthday of our nation, that we have overcome obstacles as a nation. We have faced wars, right? We have faced diversions and divisions in our country where people are against each other. We've had highs and lows, and as our grandkids call it, buffaloes, those things we didn't know were happening. And yet at the end of the day, we're still gathering around the flag, gathering around, being proud of being an American. I know that's a song. And I want that to be true for you and your family, that you gather around each other and support each other, because you've had highs, you've had lows, you've had buffaloes. And we just want to encourage you today, Ken and I, not to give up. And today on your mark has been how a powerful fathering vision leads to positive action. Well, I'm Dr. Michelle Watson Canfield, the Dad Whisperer, here with my husband. I can call Ken the Dad Mentor. We're here together.
You bet.
And we are cheering you on as dads.
We are.
And saying, let today be a day where you intentionally and consistently invest in pursuing your daughter's hearts. Go dads.
Go dads.
Woo.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of the Dad Whisperer podcast with Dr. Michelle Watson Canfield. To find out how you can invite Dr. Michelle for your next event, go to drmichellewatson.com and click on the speaking tab. That's drmichellewatson.com. Dr. Michelle loves bringing practical insights she gleaned over the past few decades to audiences of teenagers, young adults, men's groups, or women's forums. Once again, go to drmichellewatson.com, that's drmichellewatson.com, for more information on the books, resources, and blogs that she has available. Remember, you can listen to the Dad Whisperer podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and we'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe and leave us a review. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you again on the next edition of the Dad Whisperer podcast with Dr. Michelle Watson Canfield.